Have you ever taken an Uber late at night, sitting quietly in the back seat as the city's lights faded behind you, and felt like something was just a little off? Tonight, I'll share 5 true scary Uber horror stories that will make you think twice before your next ride. These stories come from real drivers and passengers who experienced moments they'll never forget. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let's begin. The passenger who never spoke. It was the summer of 2019 when I started driving for Uber to make extra cash. One rainy Friday night around 11:45 p.m., I got a request from a location on the outskirts of town, near an old industrial district that had mostly shut down years ago. The GPS showed the pickup spot as a dimly lit street beside an abandoned warehouse. When I pulled up, a tall man in a black hoodie was already standing in the shadows. He didn't wave or smile, he just opened the back door and got in. "Good evening," I said. No response. I checked the app. The drop-off point was across the city, near a closed shopping mall. The whole ride, the man never said a single word, not even when I tried small talk about the weather. Halfway through the trip, I glanced at the rearview mirror. He wasn't looking at his phone or out the window. He was staring straight at me in the mirror, expressionless. The silence felt heavy. I turned on the radio, but it only made things worse. The signal kept cutting out with static. When we finally arrived at the destination, the man didn't move. "Sir, we're here," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Still no response. I turned halfway around to look directly at him, and the back seat was empty. The car doors had never opened, and I swear I had watched him the whole drive. Shaken, I checked the trip log. It showed the ride had ended, paid in cash. I didn't accept any more rides that night. The woman in the red dress. Back in 2021, I was coming home from a late-night dinner and booked an Uber around 2 a.m. The driver, a middle-aged guy named Jorge, told me something that still chills me to this day. He said a few months earlier, he had picked up a young woman wearing a long red dress outside a hotel near the highway. She smiled politely, gave an address about 15 minutes away, and stayed quiet after that. When they reached the street she'd given him, Jorge stopped and turned to let her know they'd arrived. The back seat was empty. Confused, he thought maybe she had slipped out at a red light, but he swore he never heard the door open. He checked the dashcam footage the next morning. The first 5 minutes clearly showed the woman sitting in the back seat. In the final frame, as they turned onto the dark road near the cemetery, her reflection in the side window simply faded until she was gone. Jorge quit driving for Uber after that night. The midnight detour. A college student named Ryan shared this one. He was driving home from a study group late one night when he accepted an Uber pool request for extra cash. He picked up a young man who claimed he was heading to a nearby suburb. But just a few minutes into the trip, the passenger asked Ryan to take a different route. One that led deeper into a forested back road. The GPS kept warning that they were off route, but the man insisted he knew a shortcut. Ryan said every instinct in his body screamed at him to turn around, but he didn't want to seem rude. Eventually, they reached a narrow dirt lane with no streetlights. Ryan stopped the car and told the man he wouldn't drive any farther. The passenger smiled strangely and said, "That's okay. I can walk from here." He opened the door, stepped into the darkness, and disappeared into the trees. Ryan locked the doors and sped off. The next morning, he saw on the news that police had discovered a shallow grave less than a mile from where he dropped the man off. No one ever found out who the stranger really was. The vanishing ride request. This story comes from Alicia, an Uber driver who often worked the night shift in Chicago. One snowy evening, she accepted a request from a user named Evelyn. The pickup was in a quiet neighborhood lined with old Victorian houses. When she arrived, there was no one outside. She waited a couple of minutes, then called the number on the app. A woman's voice answered in a whisper, "I'm coming, please wait." A minute later, Alicia saw a pale figure walking slowly down the front steps of one of the houses. The woman was wearing an outdated winter coat that looked decades old. She got in the car without a word, gave a polite nod, and sat still as they drove. Halfway to the destination, the app suddenly froze, then displayed, "Trip cancelled by rider." Alicia glanced into the mirror to ask what had happened, but the back seat was empty. She returned to the pickup address to figure out what went wrong, but the house was dark and boarded up. The neighbors later told her the house had been abandoned for over 30 years. The Silent Pursuer. Our last story happened to Kevin, a regular passenger who worked late shifts at a downtown hotel. One night around 3 a.m., his Uber dropped him off in front of his apartment building. As the car drove away, Kevin noticed another car idling across the street, a black sedan with tinted windows. He went inside, locked his door, and went about his night, until he glanced out the window 20 minutes later. The same black sedan was parked directly across from his building, engine still running. Thinking it was just coincidence, he went to bed. Around 4:30 a.m., he was startled awake by the sound of slow footsteps in the hallway outside his apartment. He peeked through the peephole. No one was there. The next morning, Kevin checked the building's security camera footage. It showed the black sedan parked outside for hours, and at one point, a tall figure stepping out and standing in front of the main door for nearly 10 minutes, just staring up at Kevin's apartment window. The police never identified the driver or the man in the footage. Kevin switched to taking the bus after that.